In today's video, we're going to talk about nostalgia and accepting the end of your childhood. So, if you're like me, many of us that potentially watch this channel, we're interested in Call of Duty or have played Call of Duty. So I started in the golden era of Call of Duty. I was third in the world in Call of Duty. So my first game was Call of Duty 4. I was in eighth grade. Then I played World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2. And my last game that I really played seriously was Ghost before I took like an 8 or 9 year hiatus, made over 1.5 million in the corporate world. And then now I just started playing Black Ops 6 and COD 4 remastered again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about nostalgia. Think about the times in your childhood, playing Call of Duty, the golden era of Call of Duty. You see that I'm playing on Pipeline right now. And this was just so nostalgic to me. Even, the grass, like look at the grass that I'm laying in right now. They just don't make Call of Duty or games like this anymore. It's just so much more realistic. The maps weren't just 3 lanes every map that you played. They had structure, dynamic. This map had an underground tunnels and interesting things that you could maneuver, hidden ladders, super cool. And so, I started as a pub star in Call of Duty 4, World at War. I was still a pub star. Modern Warfare 2, I played pubs, but then I got into game battles and MLG. Played a little bit of game battles, had a little bit of a clan, became pretty good at climbing the ranks. And then I became sponsored and I had 1v1 search and destroy. I was number one in a certain season in game battles. So I remember I played hardcore and regular search and destroy. I think my record was like 124 and 5. And so I was first for that season. So that's where I gained a lot of notoriety and then started getting on better teams. And then when Black Ops 1 came out, that was the first Call of Duty where from day one, I was an S&D star grinding game battles. I ended up boosting my, winning some Call of Duty tournaments, some S&D tournaments. I had a doubles partner. I still stay in touch with him. And some of these people today, we've built lifelong friendships in some of these games. I have about 4 to 5 people that I still, stay in touch with from time to time. We feel like brothers, and these really deep friendships that we've created through the game and throughout the years. So Black Ops 1 was the game where I, really started climbing the ranks, really started establishing myself as, one of the biggest S&D stars in the game from a competitive search and destroy standpoint. I played with people like Fizzerp, so I did, game battles, and he was on my team or I should say I was on his team at a certain point. That was short-lived, but again, I, played with Fizzerp. I remember Sensor. So if you guys know Doug Sensor Martin, he actually pinged me he wanted to join my team. And me being a little cocky young guy, I told him, no, dude, too many people on my team, man. Sorry. And, look at him. I don't know how many subscribers he has, maybe over 1 million. So I remember one of his MLG teammates that he did variant with was on my search and destroy team. So he played with like Juggernometry, this guy named Clover. So Clover was on my team. And Doug Sensor Martin, they were actually, a really solid team in the MLG variant space. And then he asked to join the team, and I didn't let him join. Anyways, I remember that. Also, interesting part about this is, I had parents that were super, super strict regarding Call of Duty. This is something that I feel like it's almost a childhood trauma, and I'll explain why. So my parents would not let me play at all, basically, during weekdays. They said I should be focused on school, focused on everything. And I would beg them. I'd be like, dude, I'm done with my homework. I have good grades. I always had amazing grades, guys. But my parents still wouldn't trust me. They said, if we let you play during the week, your grades are going to slip. I said, well, wait until my grades slip. I said, trust me until I've proven you not to trust me. They said, well, we don't want to wait till your grades slip. Once they slip, it's too late. So they basically, I could play for like 30 minutes after my homework was done. And I said, dude, 30 minutes isn't enough. That's like 2 singles matches. I said, come on, man. And then all of my other friends were able to do whatever the fuck they wanted whenever they wanted, right? They had kind of, very freedom and flexible parents. So my parents would actually hide the game. They made me turn the game in. They would hide it. They would hand me the game when I was allowed to play it. So what I did, because I was committed, I wanted to be, climb the MLG game battles ranks. This was my passion. This is what I loved to do. And so what I did is when they would leave the house, I scoured the whole house and I found their hiding spot. So what I would do is I would, in the middle of the night, even on a Tuesday at around midnight, I would creep downstairs, use my flashlight on my cell phone. I would find the disc. I had to be careful not to wake them up. and they put it underneath the coffee table, I remember. So I would go in with a blank CD because they would always check to make sure that the game was in the case, right? Call of Duty, when I turned the game in. Then they'd go and hide it. Well, at midnight, I'd go in and I would take the Call of Duty disc out and replace it with a blank disc, because when they handed the game back to me, they would never open up the game to ensure that there was a CD in there. I also even printed out, it looked really fake, but I printed out, the cover of the Call of Duty CD, and I glued it onto the blank disc just in case they opened it up. I was hoping that that would suffice. But anyways, I would get the game at around midnight, and I remember sometimes I would play till 4 or 5 in the morning. Then I'd have to wake up at 8 o'clock to go to high school. And as you could imagine, after days in a row of doing this and being on the wrestling team, I was absolutely fucking exhausted. And my mom, being intuitive and older than I was, she ended up realizing, I had extreme bags under my eyes. Something's wrong with him. He's like chronically exhausted. He looks sick. So I remember one time in the middle of the night at like 3 in the morning, she opened my door and she just had this epiphany. I think he's playing the game somehow. And then what my dad went ahead and did is he ended up somehow, restricting the router where it would turn off at certain times. Well, luckily, one of my teammates was really tech savvy. He, did shit on my computer where we could reverse engineer the IP and then turn it back on. And I remember I was kind of looking over my dad's shoulder one day and I saw the password he typed in each time he went into the software. So I knew the password. I just didn't know how to get into it and change the settings. So I would turn the router back on and sign into this program and restrict the settings. And I'd play as much as I wanted. So that lasted for quite a while. But basically on the weekends, my parents let me play as much as I wanted. So I told them, dude, you guys are forcing me to have no social life. You're forcing me to be a recluse. I said, I'm committed to this fucking game. This is what I love to do. I'm third in the world, and you're forcing me to cancel plans with friends. When people invite me out, I would say no, right? I was an absolute fucking loser in high school. And I told them, listen, you don't let me play during the week and get it out of my system. And I'm going to have to just play this as every waking moment possible on the weekend. So I became extremely a recluse, a gamer nerd, a virgin, a loser. Other kids were going to the prom. They were probably losing their virginity, smoking weed, being kids and having those experiences, hanging out with people. And I became that guy that was known as, he's just a Call of Duty gamer nerd. That's all I would do. And to this day, I told my parents, listen, that really, set me back in my life. I said, if you guys didn't trust me, my grades were fine. You should have let me play as much as I wanted. And I would have actually been like, you want to know what? I played a whole bunch Monday through Thursday. Well, now on Saturday, how about I go out and hang out with friends and shit, right? But that was a huge parental mistake that really impacted me because, again, I was addicted to this game and I was committed to this shit. This was my number one priority. And, moving on, they're just so nostalgic, these maps, these guns, and the memories that it provokes, Modern Warfare 2 or, Terminal, Scrapyard, Rust, these timeless maps, Black Ops 1, World at War, right? That game just like, there's no game that will ever feel like that. Even the soundtrack, the audio, it was just a beautiful experience. I love going on these Call of Duty channels that play like World at War or Black Ops 1 and this shit. There was this guy named Force Phobia. I think he placed second. It was like Force something in the MLG actual tournaments. I forget which tournament it was, but it was the MLG variant tournament. There was this guy who was like fucking 500 pounds, but he's one of the best players in the world. And I would just DM all these people or message them on game battles and ask them if they wanted to join my S&D team. I had a really good teams, right? So they'd click on the link, they'd see, wow, I remember we had like 5 people within the top 100 GB ranks, right? So we had a stacked team, a great record, and they'd be like, sure, I would join. And I remember I thought it was so cool playing with one of the best players in the world. And he gave me a good compliment after we won a tournament together. He posted on his Twitter, he said, I think this guy is the best search and destroy player in the whole world. And I really believe that I was for a short period of time in Black Ops 1. A very short period of time. I was known on PS, I forget even the system. I think it was PS3 back in the day. So, guys, I just wanted to share a few things, when it comes to nostalgic and my biggest Call of Duty memories, recapping, right? It's, Fizzerp, that story, the sensor story, the game battles, being third in the world, climbing from being a pub star master and playing with kids at high school to then playing with guys online and really grinding, and also being first in the game battle season in 1v1. So I did 1v1 search and destroy, and really climbing the ranks. I really believe that fortitude, that addiction, that obsessive nature I had with climbing the ranks really translated into self improvement, which is the essence of this channel. Overcoming your fears, talking to hot girls, getting rejected hundreds of times before it started clicking. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. I'm a Call of Duty. I've started grinding recently, COD 4 Remastered, after like 8 years of taking a hiatus from COD, and it's just so nostalgic because it's so similar to the original game. It's essentially the same thing. And guys, I'd love for you to drop in your comment your most nostalgic memories of Call of Duty. Which Call of Duties were your favorite? When did you start playing? Were you one of the people that played in the golden era, right? Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, COD 4, World at War. I would consider that the golden era. And drop your comments below. I hope you found some of these experiences and stories of mine to be interesting, and some of them a little humorous as well. And again, just a little bit of a different video this time. Usually things are self-improvement related, but I just wanted to talk about nostalgia and the golden era of COD and how it feels looking back on some of our childhoods. This was a massive piece of my childhood and my teenage years and even my early college. And I'm not going to lie, I do regret it to a degree. The experiences I missed out on. Socially, I feel like I was stunted and I had to work my way out of that hole. I probably would have lost my virginity earlier, but, looking back, there were so many fond memories, and I wouldn't change it. And it probably, started being kind of a loser, probably is what lit that fire under my ass to self improve and to become a 1%er, make over $1.5 million in the last 5 years, to become a handsome guy that's successful with women and has gotten with many women, right, and made up for lost time. So, guys, leave comments down below, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.